This is John with WesleyGospel.com. Um, what if you're one of those people that struggles with Bible contradictions, or so-called Bible contradictions, supernatural occurrences in the Bible, and this constant pressure from other people that that's that proves the Bible's not true, that proves the Bible's a lie, that proves that I can't even be a Christian anymore and be intellectually honest because after all, there's so many contradictions in the Bible. After all, there's so many miracles in the Bible. And so therefore, how can I be honest with myself knowing full well that these two things undermine the authority of Scripture? Well, hold your horses there. Uh, what makes you so sure that there really are contradictions in the Bible? What makes you so sure that the miracles in the Bible never happened? Well, everybody else tells me that this means that. Well, before you start to say this means that, okay, why don't you try to understand the so-called Bible contradiction more? Why don't you try to understand the miracles more before you say this means that I can't believe in the Bible? That's quite a flippant jump. And I think a lot of people, they make these flippant jumps because they're not really all that interested in God. They're apathetic. They treat the holy word of God in a passe, nonchalant manner. There's an apathy there, and that's the real problem. The lack of desire to really search out the truth of these matters and get solid answers, making sure that your faith remains intact and that your connection to God remains intact. Right? If you just pass through college and you pass through all this secular garbage and then you just swallow it down and move on to your engineering career or whatever, well, that's the real problem. The problem's not with the Bible, the problem's with your apathy, your spiritual apathy, and your lack of desire to really find the answer to those problems that you have with the Bible. I went through this phase. I mean, I was a philosophy and religion student, so I was constantly attacked with what you'd call biblical or higher criticism of the Bible, and that's what this is about. That's what you'd call that. You'd call that higher criticism. Come out of 1800s liberal Christianity. It's still with us today in our state universities. So how do you deal with that? I'll tell you what, the best way to deal with that is book reading. It's the best way. Book reading got you into this problem, and book reading is going to get you out of it. Most likely, you picked up this stuff at a college somewhere. This stuff is at colleges. So, uh, if you picked up Bible contradictions and miracles or fairy tales anywhere outside of a college, I'd be surprised. It's at colleges that people get this stuff. And what do people do when they're at colleges? They read books. And what do people do in classrooms at colleges? They discuss books. They read books and they discuss books. That's what people at college do. Okay, so this idea of difficulties with the Bible, of there's a fact stated in this part of the Bible, and there's another statement made in this part of the Bible, and they don't seem to agree. Therefore, the Bible's not true, and I don't have to be a Christian. Whoa! Hold your horses. Just put a stop on that cascade you got there, because that cascade's going down to hell. The best thing that really helped me to process a lot of this stuff until I just gave up on reading through it because I felt peace in my heart was Norman Geisler's book When Critics Ask. So if you could look up that book right now real quick, it's called When Critics Ask by Norman Geisler. Just Google that. Norman Geisler, When Critics Ask. Okay? This book is goes through every major Bible difficulty from Genesis to Revelation. So if you open it up, okay, the table of contents goes like this: Genesis, Exodus. It's the books of the Bible. And you're thinking to yourself, wow, there's no other book I've ever seen that has its table of contents, the books of the Bible, other than the Bible. Precisely. That's what this book is. And it's huge. It's very thoroughly done. Very thoroughly done. It's by a reputed publisher, Baker Books. Over 600 pages. Uh, a top Baptist and Presbyterian Reformed. Uh, uh, this is really the top thing. And what's even more involved is at the end of the book, there's a bibliography for even more books along this type of thing, where you could literally build a personal bookshelf filled with, listen, filled with thousands upon thousands of Bible believing theological responses to quote unquote Bible contradictions and quote unquote miracles in the Bible are just fairy tales. I don't have to believe in Christianity. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Before you jump to these conclusions, why don't you read through, say, 10,000 pages of these Bible contradiction Christian books? And they will tell you that they're not really contradictions uh, at all, and that the miracles of the Bible are supernatural, are paranormal, and you have every reason to trust in them. And this is not just stupid, gullible, mindless religion here. This is like supported by 6,000 pages response type religion. Okay. This stuff has been going on for 200 years. This type of Bible contradictions, blah blah blah, miracles, don't believe them, blah blah blah. 200 years. Do you think the Christian theologians just sat on their hands for 200 years and never wrote books to respond to that? This spirit has been around for 200 years. This type of hypercritical attitude towards the Bible. Do you think that they would just sit on their hands and just sit idly by with all these seminaries for 200 years and never publish anything against that stuff in response to it? So get your book, When Critics Ask, A Popular Handbook on Bible Difficulties by Norman Geisler. It was later on republished under a different title as well. And it was called The Big Book of Bible Difficulties. Same book, just under a different title. Um, yeah, man, anything from Norman Geisler. There was another one called the Encyclopedia of Bible Difficulties, New International Encyclopedia of Bible Difficulties by Gleason Archer. It's a 480-page one. Um, Guys, this stuff, this is not something like I could create an entire blog based off of those books. I could create an entire ministry based off of answering all these little objections and all these little things that people bring up about the Bible, like, you know, did a whale really swallow Jonah, and did he die for 3 days and come back to life again? Would people find things in the Bible that are just extraordinary or impossible to believe for them? Look, there's a rational response, and I don't mean natural explanation. I don't mean naturalistic reductionism response. I mean, there's a faith-based response to all of these things that people find to be incredible. In the Bible, there are incredible things, and let me before we leave off this subject, Ripley's Believe It or Not. Are you familiar with Ripley's Believe It or Not? Ripley's Believe It or Not was a TV show, but it was also, um, I believe, a kind of like a sideshow thing, sideshow attractions, museums of popular oddities that happen in the world, that happen not pseudoscience level, but just they happen. They're scientific facts that are just unusual, and that's what Ripley's Believe It or Not was based around. It's an entertainment thing, and it was based around showing people that there are oddities in nature, and there are Ripley's Believe It or Not type things in the Bible. It's not that they're not true, it's that they're sometimes hard to believe. But that doesn't make them not true, okay? And and then there's unsolved mysteries. There are paranormal and supernatural and spiritual events that happen in the Bible. There are unsolved mysteries types things in the Bible. This doesn't make them untrue. It makes them mysteries, and the word mystery is used in the Bible as well. So this does not mean there is room for the paranormal, there is room for the unusual, and there is room for the mysterious in the Bible. And in an age of rationalism, in an age of science where things that are mysterious or unusual, it's generally not welcome. It's generally laughed at. But that doesn't make these things untrue. Okay? And if you're going to move past apathy, move past your careerism just for a moment and contemplate the greater things in life, you might just find not only enough answers, but more than enough answers. Um, Martin Luther was struggling with the similar sort of crisis of faith in his life, although it wasn't over evolution and higher criticism, Bible contradictions, anti-miracle thinking like it is today. No, in Martin Luther's time, it was more about questioning the reality of Catholicism against his new Protestant convictions and how he felt like Catholicism had some serious spiritual problems with it at the time he was living in. And his answer was to be found by Staupitz. Staupitz was his spiritual director when he was still a Catholic, and Staupitz sent Luther to Rome to become a theologian. He believed that the answer Luther needed was to become a theologian. Now you might say, well, I can't be a theologian. I don't have enough money to go to school. Blah, 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 blah. You don't have to. You can go on Amazon. You can go on Abe Books and get your own theological books and find your own answers that way. You can study theology yourself. Most theological programs, all right, they study about 50 books and they're done. You can buy 500. There's no limit, right? So study theology on your own. That's what I say. Keep it evangelical. Keep it Pentecostal. Don't get into heretical stuff. Keep it within the evangelical tradition and you'll be fine. But uh, you're going to find your answers if you read and if you study. And I would also say encourage you to write theology as well, because when you write stuff out, it really helps you to understand your answer to your question better. Guys, if you're going to believe in Bible contradictions and miracles or legends, and you're just going to rest on your laurels and go on with your career, the fault lies with you, okay? Not with the 6,000 pages of books that have been written by theologians in the past 200 years in response to all of this garbage, which you have decided not to read or even find that was there, because it is there. The fault lies with you in your spiritual lukewarmness and apathy to not get those weird skeptic questions answered. There are satisfying answers for those things. Do you have the faith to seek the answers for them? Augustine had a phrase called faith seeking understanding. And faith comes first, seeking understanding comes second. And there is satisfactory answers out there. Start out with When Critics Ask by Norman Geisler, and you can build a tree of wisdom out of that if you continue to buy more and more books along those lines to have every answer available to you, because they have been written, they have been printed long before you were even born. The answers are all there, sitting there waiting for you to find them. And uh, Luther was sent by Staupitz to Rome to study theology. He believed that was what Luther needed to calm his mind down, and that is what he needed. And he became one of the greatest theologians in church history. and started the Protestant Reformation because he studied theology. Think about that. God bless you out there. This is John with WesleyGospel.com.